Hello and welcome to ZPR, Zanu Project Rethink. My name is Franck Zanu and I have in the studio with me this morning Darlene Noel. Darlene is the CEO of Nexus Consulting, which is she's a licensed business coach and consultant. Darlene, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here and just have this dialogue and friendly conversation with you today.
Wonderful. Yes, so I did receive your note, and if I can remember the topic clearly, so let me see if I can state it properly. If not, correct me. Your topic that you sent to me was, do people need God/religion to be successful?
That's right.
That's correct?
That's correct. Do we need God to be successful?
Wonderful.
Do we need religion to be successful?
Okay, so I've taken the time to think about it, and I just have a couple of questions since it is your topic. All I'm going to do this morning is play the devil's advocate, and so that you can help clarify what you mean to the audience. So, how did that come about?
That came about really from my past experience being so active within the Christian faith and as a business coach and consultant catering to the Haitian community and all people. I started taking notice when I started doing some different research of how are my clients, the most successful clients, and about their talks from my mentorship. And I started noticing that I was attracting a lot of religious clients. And from my research, and I started noticing that not too many of them were successful within the program. And that started raising a lot of questions for me, especially now in politics, where I usually mix politics and religion, and I mix religion, politics, and business. Those are the three topics really that are highly engaging to me, and I love talking about them. And that's how it started. And I started talking to you about different topics, and boom, it was like, okay, why don't we do a show about success and religion?
God. All right. So, well, you've heard, Darlene. The question is, does God and religion make people successful, or do people need God or religion to be successful? All right. So I'm going to focus on the word success.
Yes.
I think we all read it. There was a king known as Solomon, and he was going to be a king, and he needed to be successful as a king. So he asked God for help, and God said, what do you need? And he said, I don't need money or power. I just simply need wisdom. God gave him a lot of wisdom. According to the story, Solomon became a very successful king.
That's right.
So, what would you say to that?
What would I say to that story? First of all, it's not only the story that I want to look into, because I can't really know what the narrator was thinking at the time, because the story is not really from a direct what's the word here? I'm stumbling over
narration.
Narration, right? Mm-hmm. So when if I were to just dive into what you just said about him being in a dream and God appearing to him and asking for wisdom and said that I will make you the richest man that ever lived. And yes, the story recorded that he was the richest man. Mm-hmm. Till this day, no one has ever met his match. But how do we measure that success with today's time? We can't fully measure it, right? So therefore, to that, and to even put this into perspective with me now, knowing what I know about the power of my mind, right? The power of my experience and my environment and my connection and what is accessible to me. Mm-hmm. And what is accessible, what I can do with it. Mm-hmm. I don't set a limitation, okay? Because how often do you dream about success? How often do I dream, or how often does another even fantasize about success?
Let's leap forward from the biblical stories, which is quite way back there, and come into the contemporary times we live in. I've seen so many people who have used God and religion to be very successful. Let's say, for example, T.D. Jakes, we have Creflo Dollar, We have T.B. Joshua of Nigeria, and we have Joel Austin, and many, many, many more. Of course, they are all very successful. Clifford Dollar is flying around in $69 million private jet.
That's right.
Now, they are both in the religion and God business, and they are successful. So how can you say people don't need God to be successful?
Now, I raised the question,
Yes.
do we need God or
But they have
religion
needed
to
him.
be successful?
They have needed him, and they have used him to be successful. They are among the 10% rich people in this country.
Who's to say they ever needed them?
Well, that's what
Who's to say they ever needed God?
But that is a business they do. They sell God every Sunday.
Uh-huh.
They pray, they say it all the time. So let's say a family in a certain deep village in Africa, for example, they've been praying to be rich. Their business never works, even though they pray all the time. And then their daughter became very sick, and they prayed hard. Every daughter or every kid was dying from the same disease. Theirs didn't die. And they said because they prayed to God, God listened, and that's why their daughter came out successfully. Would you say that they are wrong, it wasn't God?
First, we have to take a step back.
Yeah.
Now, let's raise the question, what is God or who is God?
Yeah.
Because the way you describe God may not be the way I describe God or
Right.
anyone else. To one, God could simply be a supreme being, creator, ruler of all things,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Especially, and let's look at the statistics, right? According to United Nations, our world population is over 8 billion. According to statistics, 31% of the world population identified as Christians.
Okay.
7% identified as atheists,
Okay.
and some others as agnostic. Let's look at China, the leading nation of atheists, followed by Japan, which we could argue that they do have Shinto, I believe, and Hinduism, but largely, mostly atheists or agnostic. Then we have South Korea, and we have Denmark. I'm naming certain developing countries to draw a distinction of faith-based and non-faith-based countries, and to see how they've done so well without God. It's not only to individuals now, we have to look at the whole, right? So if we have the population of over 8 billion, then 31% of the world population identified as a Christian base, others as Muslim being over 1 billion, and Hinduism being over 1 billion, and Jews being and over hundreds of millions, right, being the least. So, and at the same time, let's take a look at the level of poverty. Right, we have over 30% of people around the world living in extreme poverty. Over 50% are just barely maintaining, and the rest are just between middle class or wealthy, etc. So,
I think you make a point by saying you're trying to point out to countries that believe in God and countries that doesn't believe in God.
Yeah, but I want to get to your the leaders
God,
mentioned.
Right? Okay. And you're right about maybe 31% of the world population live in poverty. Yes, they live in poverty, which means you're talking about financial wealth. Could they be successful in other areas of those poor places? Or are you saying that those places, in addition to financial wealth, they failed in everything? They could be successful in just simply human interaction and relationships, which we believe is true. Now, if they say to you, yes, what you've seen here, let me give you a story. When I used to live in Kenya, I met this lady from Sweden who kept saying every day we go out to drink about her life in Kibera. Kibera is the largest slum in Kenya, and she is so happy. And she kept saying, oh my God, I've never seen this kind of pure, natural happiness among people who are so poor. So I said, yes, but you've come here to change it. Could it be possible that what you've come to give them, if they get it, the happiness is going to go away. Now, Kibera people are also very, very religious people. They have churches all over the slum.
Yeah.
So the point I'm trying to make is your problem is the success, the word successful, if you need God or not. Because the 31% poor people, they could have something that the majority rich people don't have. So the people in Kibera, the slums of Kenya and other places, of course, in Asia, would say that, yes, they owe their happiness and content with what they are to God being in their lives. I don't think you can argue that. You can't tell them you're wrong or right.
Well, you see, that's where a lot of us get it. That's where a lot of us are challenged. It's not a matter of right and wrong.
Okay.
And that's where we fail at approaching many aspects or questions and differences in life.
Would you be able to prove to them that God was not responsible for their happiness and content in life? Would you be able to prove it to them?
It's not a matter of proving, but to talk about success, right? We were talking about success. You were saying that they seem to be very happy with whatever little that they have.
Right.
Would I be able to quantify that into success or not? But to me, and to most of us, what we consider success often has to be tangible, has to be something material. Whereas we see the house and we know that we have an amount or surmountable of cash accessible to us, because we have to have certain things in order to fund our day-to-day basis, right? So that's why we tend to measure success by a lot of material gain. And for example, I'm from Haiti, where there's the majority there, okay, we can say live on extreme poverty. And the little who are doing well in the middle class, not that much in percentage. Growing up, we weren't living lavishly. We had enough, more than enough, to be better off than the one who's experiencing extreme poverty. And when we would go to the remote places in the country and into the villages, we found those same children that you're talking about, whether they were playing in the mud or running after their little chicken or pigs. They were very happy. So to me, it's not I would not bring the word success. I would measure it by being content. Okay? Not bringing the discussion of success. So could they have something that they're successful, whether it is the fishermen within that village being very successful within that skill to be able to go out and fish and bring in the fish and not having the big houses or the multi-million dollars in his account. That is a level of success. However, then if I wanted to really dive into the discussion of success, then I would have to take that same fisherman and compare him to the other fishermen in the village now to quantify success.
Okay.
And what I would find there, then by his by his beliefs, then I would know whether or not he needed God for it.
I will accept your argument as you said. When you talk about success, you mean something that is tangible. I accept that. I have to look at your lifestyle and be able to afford the three most basic needs of life continuously. All right. The most...
Before, to add this, personally, let's just say that I have no money. Being the first of my family to ever, as the women, okay, and being the first to ever get married. People looked at me as successful because of that. Being the first to ever attend college and graduated. My mother and father and aunties and uncles didn't have that opportunity. So I really set the map. Okay, set the tone in a lot of ways. A lot of people looked at that as a success for me. But for me, while I saw it as a milestone that I overcame, it did not define my overall success.
Okay.
Because that's not where I wanted to be.
Okay.
And did I need God to even get there? No, I did not need God.
You didn't need.
So
now,
we'll talk about that.
Let's talk about the places of things that are tangible, people can see. The Middle East is a very devoutly religious place. I mean, nobody would argue that. The Wahhabi boy is born 2 years ago. Is already walking around, in Porsche cars. It's not a place you can compare at all to say that it's poor. They have material wealth to show. They go shopping in France and close down a whole beach. They live well. A lot of Africans today are in the Middle East as servants in almost every home you find, but they are painfully religious people. How would you explain that? That is a difficult thing to say if you look at people who pray 5 times a day, fast for 40 days. They have the Mecca that attracts millions from around the world.
Well, that's a great example, Frank.
Yes. What would you say about the Wahhabi kids?
They inherited a wealth.
Yes, but how about the person who built the wealth? He relied on, Islam and the Wahhabi boys, they go side by side.
Frank.
That's one. Number 2, America, among the 8 industrialized countries, America happened to be somehow, awe-inspiringly, a very, very, very religious country. We have God's name on our dollar. We have it on our buildings. And it just happened that you mentioned countries like Japan and Denmark and the Scandinavian areas, but America is a very successful country, but it's a very religious country.
Yes. So Haiti is also a very religious country. Mm-hmm. Why don't they have the success that America has if we're basing it on religion? Okay. We can't base it on religion. Frank, the challenge we face is that, I'll give you an example. I don't need to know God at all or to even be religious to know that I was born into a system. The system is set like this. You are born, you go to school, you further your education, whether or not you want to attend universities, you get a job, you work. By that, you'll be able to provide a level of good lifestyle for yourself. Mm-hmm. We're not into wealth yet, right? Because the statistics tell us that it's not. And now you find me. I was in the church as a first lady. So I was really active in the church. And I will share this story with you and share my discovery within that experience. As the pastor's wife at that time, I've heard and sat down with a lot of people. Most of the religious minded sound folks, they are operating on a faith base. Okay. And by being around, I learned even if I wanted to pursue something, until I hear from God or until my leader tell me to go forth, I were to remain stagnant and wait on the voice of God or wait for a confirmation from my leader. And I compare that life and those people of mind, like as I was, to my life today. I have discovered from that life into the life I'm living now that there's let's talk about the theory of relativity. Theory of relativity tells us that everything exists at once, which means that everything I need is here right now, right? That means I have accessibility. It's available to me. Now, how I go about tapping into that,
it's a different story.
Is a different story.
That is based on ability.
Exactly.
Okay.
So here's why I'm bringing this aspect. To bring our conversation into this context. From my experience into my day-to-day interaction with customers and other friends or even people I come across, we do not know how to identify what we really need, because we are all being told, whether it is directly or indirectly being influenced by day-to-day social media or talks that we hear, TV, etc. We are being influenced. A lot of us don't really hold what we call free thinking, a free mind. We're not really free up here. We are being told and
to
being
do.
led.
And so we become stagnant, as you
We
say.
become stagnant.
There is a question you hit me with, and I didn't give you the answer, but as I think about it, you made a very good example when you compared. If being religious is what made the United States this rich, then how come Haiti, that is very piously religious, is not?
It's not.
That's a very good question. If a coach, and it has happened, a coach took 6 boys of the same age, the same weight, the same abilities, and he said, I'm going to turn them into the best basketball players. At the end of the year, he got 3 best basketball players. The rest didn't. Simply, we could conclude they didn't have the ability to follow what he was coaching. So could it be that maybe the countries that are also religious but are not successful simply are not listening to the coach, which is God? So America may be listening to the coach.
Listen, I find being in the church,
Yeah.
that same leader who is selling God every Sunday, once he step off that stage, may not be as religious as you think he is.
Oh, well, that is left with him and his God to decide, because we don't want to say we are here to judge people, because people say only God
we're not
knows.
judging. We're not
Right,
judging. However, based on experience, based on knowledge, right?
Could it be that's what God wants?
From observation,
Yeah.
we know the standard that is set,
Yes.
and we follow it. So that means we
Which
don't
king?
judge, we evaluate.
Which king was it that they
We
said?
evaluate.
Which king was it that they said took somebody's wife, but God still loved him? David?
Well,
Or Abraham?
he said, yeah, God gave him. But
Okay.
the point I
so
wanted to make,
what I'm trying to say is this: I've seen religious people. Yes, I may look at some things they do and say, I don't agree with it. However, I've also seen the stories where people that were favored by God did things that were not particularly pleasing, and yet they were still favored by God. So maybe what you saw, which is true about evaluating what you saw, maybe in the eyes of God who picked him, he may be doing the right thing.
Okay, so which bring me?
So to the question of the coach, it's very important to this, all right? We have tapped into many, many other countries, some that are very religious and rich. South, the Middle East is one of them. America is another. The Jews are piously religious people. Yet they are also very, very successful, and we can go down the list. And then there are others who are also religious, and they are not successful. Haiti is one of them, and many African countries that spend 16 hours of the week in church. Could it be that they were not listening to the coach properly? Now, listen, I'm only playing the devil's advocate. I'm not advocating that you need God to be successful or doesn't need. I'm just playing the devil's advocate. I'm agnostic as it comes, because I cannot prove any of this. But would you agree with me? It could be the analogy of the coach, that these countries, yes. Number 2, Haiti doesn't have an original religion of its own. It copied the Christianity from somewhere. So possibly he wasn't very...
we have voodoo, but we don't want to get... Yeah,
it's not a national... Okay,
yes,
sure.
we have voodoo, then intercepted by Christianity.
Okay.
Right? Okay, so this is exactly where I wanted to get to when I started talking about the theory of relativity. The people who are successful on whichever level, as I described earlier, and for myself especially, when I started being successful, right, it wasn't when I was attending fasting, being on my knees in Bible study 3 times a week. I became successful when I identified and I started questioning myself, Darlene, what kind of lifestyle do you want? Then I took that and compared it from my past life and saw how I was stagnant, how I was lazy-minded, how I was an individual who was lost, to bring me to this life. And I finally figured out what I had to do is to identify who I am, what I want to do. And from that, I didn't just stop there. Once I identified what I wanted to do and I knew what was my passion, I knew the passion I had was not going to fund my lifestyle. So therefore, I had to develop some kind of skill. And once I developed that skill, what did I have to do? Like other successful people, I learned to put a plan together. I learned to develop strategies, and I learned to network, to connect myself. I learned to get out of my comfort zone and go out there in search of what I wanted, because I started to believe that everything exists at once. Everything is accessible right here, right now. Whereas me and many of my faith buddies, We were waiting on a supernatural power. And I discovered through that journey that God to me is all in all. And because he's all in all, that all in all, I'm connected to that all in all, which make me all in all as well. And therefore, God is in me. And what is that God in me? It's the higher self. The higher self that is able to meditate, to finally come to knowing, to finally come to the understanding of what I want and how do I go after it. And lastly, I want to introduce this. Frank, there's two poles of truth in life. Two poles of truth. The first pole is absolute truth. It says, things as in the mind of God knows them. And what is that telling us? This absolute truth is telling us this supreme being, this all in all, this creator, we cannot, being stuck in this body, we cannot know what is in his mind, what is in the universe, what is beyond us. We cannot know. But the second pole of truth is where we all relate as human beings, which is the relative truth. And it says, things as in the highest reason of men understand them. Things as in the highest reason of men understand them. This truth is understanding that pole of truth is what brought me to success. Listen to me.
Let me help you with what I've understood so I don't lose my train of thought. I think your last part has really made me more understand. And by the way, Darlene with me in the studio, the CEO of Nexus Consulting, and she's trying to let us understand from her experience that majority of people she has met, especially through her coaching services, who are reliant upon God do not do well. I think what you're saying is that some cultures have taught their people to depend solely on God to become successful, and successful in any area.
Yes.
And that you're saying places where that is higher, where the people are taught to depend on God, they don't do well. Not just because they are religious. Recently, I had a Jehovah's Witness come to my door, and as we were talking, I said, do I rely on God or God rely on me? And she said, no, you rely on God. And I said, well, if that were the case, you wouldn't be at the door here. God sent you to come and beg me to change so he can realize his kingdom on earth. So he's relying on me to change so he can do his work. If that were the mindset we have, and maybe that is the mindset of America, that is the mindset of Saudi Arabia or the Middle East, that they believe God is relying on them to showcase his blueprint on earth. And so if people take that, if people have that knowledge that I am a representative, I have to manifest God.
Hold that thought right there. I just want to insert and agree with you absolutely with that mindset. Pay close attention when a highly successful person, a religious successful person is talking and says, a lot of them, whether directly or indirectly, they usually quote that, say, God needs me to go about this work. Even many aspect verses in the Bible, you will see that. In context, God needs me to go here. God needs me to go spread the gospel. Mm-hmm. God needs me to go into this region. Whereas highly religious people say, I need God. Oh my God, if God don't intervene right now, I'm going to flunk this test. If God don't intervene right now, I'm about to lose this opportunity. Whereas for me, I already know it's been said. I already know it's here waiting for me. So by the second pole of truth, where it says relative truth, where things as in the highest reason of men understand them, I understand that whatever I have to do to get to where I want to be, that is what I have to do. Because you know why? Because I know there is this higher self waiting to connect with me, to use me as this portal. Mm-hmm. then if I have to step on your feet to get there, I will get there.
Okay.
I will get there by any means because I have found my highest reason
so if the higher being,
to understand.
One second. If the higher being is using you, chose you and is using you, you don't believe at all that he's going to give you any portfolio of help in any way? Wouldn't that be what maybe you just change the relationship by making yourself become one on whom God relies?
Yes.
And now he said you have found the right thing. So he's now channeling the success through you. So if I put 10 women here in front of you, and as we're about to, end our discussion, I put 10 women here in front of you. Mm-hmm. They've been praying hard, 16 hours in the church, Hosanna days, Hallelujah days, day and night. What would you tell them to do?
Repeat that.
10 women in the studio, because they listen to you and they want you to tell them, all right, we've been very, very religious and we don't seem to be successful. What would you tell them to do? Practically.
If I'm not one to tell people because I don't approach people as in wrong and right.
No.
I
if
would
you are
not be the one.
coaching based on this topic,
They're
those women said they listen to you that we've been religious, but we are not successful as we want, based on tangible things, as you said. And they want you to say, please advise us, coaches, as to how we can move from how you move to where you are. They want to do the same. What would you tell them to do?
First thing I would tell them is to first identify what it is that you want to do.
Okay.
Because my job...
Should they stop going to church? Should they stop giving tithe?
You see?
Should they stop praying?
I would never tell anyone to stop going to church.
Okay.
Because from the way I understand my all in all, right, is more like a permission for me to unleash. Because, for example, right, this individual, this gentleman behind the camera, he knows the camera, but I need his service to film, but I don't know how to operate the camera, right?
So you rely on him.
So I rely on him.
All right.
My reliance on him is the permission I'm giving myself to meet my success.
Right.
But I don't all depend on him to reach my success.
Right. What's the first permission you would ask them to give themselves? So the first permission
I would give them is to first identify what you need to do, and it has to be that one thing.
Okay.
Then then research that area you want to get into. Know the system and operation that you need to set in place for you in that thing to become successful.
While they are doing this, what is the best advice for them to modify their ways in relation to God and church?
The best way is, I would say, is to know themselves, to meditate. To meditation. Meditate. A lot of people, I disagree with a lot of people, church folks, that says, prayer is the answer to everything, where I boldly disagree. And I said, no, prayer is not the answer to everything, because I don't have to pray a single day. However, if I set my focus to meditate every day, because in meditation, what am I doing? I'm shutting out every noise, whereas in prayer, I am more voicing. So meditation where I meet my complete solitude, there I will fill in myself. And then from filling in myself, then the path of self-discovery, I will start finding it. And then on my path of discovery, then I will reach eventually self-mastery. And that is what highly successful people have done. They have identified one thing and they pursue it wholeheartedly. And then, like people like Jeff Bezos, have you read so many things that he has done? No, he's attached to Amazon. He has found the ways to make Amazon so successful, right? And now he has mastered the formula of Amazon becoming what it is today.
With that, you've heard from Darlene Noel, CEO of Nexus. Excellent, brilliant advice. I'm sure that your clients and people are going to get a lot out of this discussion. You've really handled it well, to open my eyes in some areas. And the topic was, do people need God and religion to be successful? And according to Darlene, she's talking about tangible success, which means, do you have your house, your cars, the 3 basic needs for your children, yourself, to be happy? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Been a good show. Hey, this is ZPR, Zanu Project Rethink. Please go on my page and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.